I was born and grew up in a small mountain village. It was a typical rural village surrounded by mountains in all directions. It was so small that we all pretty much knew each other. After graduating from high school, I moved to a bustling city for a job. One day, I received a distressing call from my mom, who still resides in our rural hometown. She said my dad was very sick. Without hesitation, I rushed to see him. "Mom, how's Dad doing?" My dad's condition was really serious. He lay motionless, his eyes flickering weakly. Despite undergoing various tests at the hospital, doctors couldn't figure out his illness at all. They merely prescribed pain medication and advised us to return home for some rest. It was baffling. My father had been healthy enough to work in the fields, and suddenly, he was struck by unknown illness. But that wasn't the only strange thing. My dad started seeing things that weren't there.
She is here. She is back, that woman. She came back again. She came back. Ah.
As this went on, my dad seemed to struggle as if someone were choking him, unable to catch his breath and in agony. Every time it happened, I couldn't help but feel nervous and worried if this would be his last moment. How much time had passed? Drifting off next to Dad, I woke up again to a scream. "Dad! Dad, are you okay?" My dad fell silent. However, at that moment, the sharp sound of metal, a chilling noise, might have startled my dad. Gathering my courage, I opened the door and headed towards the source of the noise. A severed chicken head dripping with blood lay on the wooden cutting board. Behind the darkness revealed was my mom, holding a bloody knife in her hand.
"Wow, this knife cuts really well,"
she exclaimed, impressed. "What are you doing here in the dark?" Mom said Dad had no appetite, so she was going to make chicken soup. I was a bit bewildered. My mom preparing chicken in the middle of the night? Until then, I had felt Mom was a bit odd, but I brushed it off without much thought. As the day broke, I made my way to the drugstore in the city to pick up my dad's medication. Upon my return, the house was eerily quiet. Mom might have gone to the field for work, I thought. However, as time went by, Mom didn't come back home. As the day grew darker and darker, I became worried and decided to go out to look for her. Not long after I stepped out of the house, I spotted Mom coming towards me.
"If you were coming from home, you should have grabbed an umbrella at least. Don't you see it's pouring rain out here?"
She scolded me. "Mom, what are you talking about? What rain? Look, the weather's beautiful." The sky was clear, not a single drop of rain, just stars twinkling brightly. Come to think of it, something seemed off about my mom. She appeared bewildered, sweating profusely and trembling. "Mom, what happened to your other shoe? Look down, one of them is missing and you're standing barefoot," I pointed out.
"Shoe? I don't know. Oh dear. I thought I was going to die."
Mom appeared frightened by something she had just remembered when I asked what had happened. She described an incident where she was harvesting potatoes in the field below the mountain, when suddenly the earth began to shake violently, accompanied by a deafening roar. As the thudding noise grew closer, it sounded like a large wild animal. Overwhelmed by fear, she ran away without looking back, even forgetting to take her tools. I asked her to describe it in more detail. The torrential rain, which had been pouring relentlessly, abruptly stopped, and in the misty haze she saw a woman dressed all in red. She wondered, what's someone in such a fancy dress doing in such a poor remote place like this? But upon closer inspection, however, it wasn't a red dress. The entire dress was stained with blood. Terrified, Mom found herself at a loss, and at that moment, the woman approached and uttered,
"Was it you? You must be the one who killed me."
Gripped by fear, my mom ran, unaware that she had lost one of her shoes in the process. A woman? What on earth are you talking about? Are you okay, Mom? You said it was pouring rain, right? But look at your clothes. They are completely dry. Mom felt her clothes and realized they were indeed dry. Then, muttering to herself,
Oh dear, what has gotten over me?
she then made a baseless connection between the woman she had just seen and the other woman my dad saw every night. She concluded they must be the same woman. A ghost. A ghost? It must have been a wild animal or something. You must be confused, I replied in fear, hoping it was just a wild animal and reassuring myself. However, on that particular night, I was awoken by an odd noise in my sleep. Mom, what are you doing in the middle of the night? At first, I thought it was my mom chopping wood, but the noise came from the bedroom. Huh? Did Dad see something again? I opened the door and looked. Dad was fast asleep, but I could still hear the thumping noise. I focused on the source of the noise, and it was coming from behind the folding screen. When I raised my gaze to the top of the folding screen, there was a woman's head bobbing up and down. Then, she stopped jumping when our eyes met. I collapsed onto the floor. How long had passed? A loud commotion from outside woke me up.
Something really wicked has entered this house.
As I opened the door and stepped out, I saw a strange old lady mumbling something about bad spirits coming into our house and said,
Let me guess, your dad is very sick, right?
What do you mean by something wicked entering our house?
My mom, startled, rushed out from the kitchen.
Oh, wait a minute, you are the one who brought it in, that thing in your hand.
The old lady's accusatory gaze, accompanied by her finger, pointed towards the knife my mom was holding. It was the same knife she had found in the field a month ago while working. According to the old lady, the knife wasn't just an ordinary one used for cutting meat or vegetables. It was a knife that had been used to stab someone to death. Unable to move on due to unjust death, the spirit tethered itself to this knife and sought revenge against our family, falsely believing my mom was the one who was responsible for her death. My mom, with a worried look on her face, turned to the old lady for guidance. The old lady said there was a way, but my mom had to do it herself since she was the one who picked up the knife. She also emphasized that she must not stop the ritual under any circumstances. As midnight approached, my mom, holding an axe, accompanied the old lady to the yard. After taking a sip of water, the old lady sprinkled it over the knife before placing it on a white cloth.
Well, let's get started.
The old lady said. Upon her command, my mom raised the axe and continued to strike the knife. Meanwhile, the old lady recited her incantation. Suddenly, groans emanated from the bedroom. Startled, I rushed into the room. Dad seemed to be in intense pain, thrashing about violently. Dad, are you all right? But Dad's seizure worsened. Seeing Dad in such distress, as if he might stop breathing at any moment, my heart sank. Mom, hurry, something's wrong with Dad, I cried out. At that moment, I heard the old lady's stern voice from outside.
No, don't stop, quickly, strike it down harder.
Without hesitation, Mom ruthlessly struck the knife with an axe. With a loud clang, Dad collapsed into a deep sleep. Upon hearing the old lady's declaration that it was over, both Mom and I breathed a sigh of relief. Although we followed this old lady's instructions out of desperation, I was quite skeptical. I mean, if there had been a murder in a small village like ours, surely we would have known about it. It was hard to believe that the knife Mom had picked up from the field was the one used to stab someone to death. But sometime later, I happened to watch the news and felt chills all over my body. The national news reports revealed that a serial killer had been caught, and the second victim was none other than a woman who had gone missing from our area nearly a year ago. Could it be that the knife Mom picked up from the field was somehow connected to the gruesome crimes? Was that knife really possessed by that woman ghost?